Hi, folks. If you've ever wondered throughout this whole series of video training sessions if I'm wearing long pants, today is the first time I have worn long pants. Usually during these sessions, I wear shorts or pajama bottoms. So I'm being professional for you today. Last time we talked about a new way of viewing and using performance reviews. Performance reviews should be using the past to enhance the present performance and to help people plan for improved productivity in the future. I hinted in that time that no matter what you're interviewing, if you are the interviewer, there are 5 key specific interviewing skills to understand and to employ. Whether you're doing a performance review, whether you're interviewing potential new candidates, whether you are interviewing people outside of your organization, if you can understand and master these 5 key elements, you will be seen as an effective, not only communicator, but an interviewer in particular. Here they are, and I will explain each one of them in more detail. They are using open-ended questions, when to use a closed-ended question, and the 3 ways of feeding back you understood, whether it's paraphrasing, reflecting, or summarizing. Open-ended questions, closed-ended questions, feeding back by paraphrasing, reflecting, or summarizing. Each of these are skills that you will develop. Here's a hint. As I go through these, apply using one of them for a week or 10 days, just emphasizing that one thing, whether it's open-ended questions or paraphrasing are usually the 2 simplest to master. Do that in your everyday personal conversations, and then gradually start introducing them into more formal sessions. Do not expect that just because you're aware of them, they will come out of your mouth right away. Okay, let's go through each one of these. Open-ended questions should be the first 95% of any interview. Open-ended questions are questions structured in such a way that the respondent has a whole open set of responses to give. Open-ended questions always start with either the word what or how. How is this happening? What are your plans? Those questions are structured in such a way that the respondent can choose and pick wherever she wants to go with that. One of the key benefits of open-ended questions is that it enables the conversation to proceed and to develop in its own direction. Rely on open-ended questions, questions that start with the words what or how. And a lot of times it will be a more natural and fluid interviewing session, as opposed to the staccato nature of playing hot potato. Have you ever been in one of those situations where you ask a question, they give a 1-word response, and then the hot potato's back in your lap, what to do again? That is no unfolding of it. Using how or what questions. Many people make the mistake of asking multiple questions, so the respondent has no idea which to answer first. And when they are confused, they are less forthright in what they say because they're confused. Also, some people believe mistakenly that if you use do questions, derivatives of the word do, does, did, didn't, that's an open-ended question. No, that is a negative type of closed-ended questions. Here's another caveat. Never ask a question with the word why at the beginning. Why did you do that? Why did this happen? That immediately puts the respondent on the defensive, and they will make up something or make excuses and increases the tension. When tension rises in a relationship, cooperation drops, and why questions elevate the tension between you two. Instead of asking why questions, ask how or what questions. Rely on asking open-ended questions. And trust yourself that if you don't receive the kind of response you would like, you can ask a little more pointed, open-ended question, again, starting with the words how or what. Now, there is a place for closed-ended questions. Closed-ended questions are used in the last 5% of an interview to gain consensus or agreement or commitment. Do you want to meet at 3 or 4 o'clock tomorrow? Are you willing to do this? Those questions are structured in such a way that the respondent gives just a couple of programmed answers. Yes, no, 4 o'clock, Wednesday's good. Those are the proper uses of closed-ended questions, ways of gaining commitment or understanding or consensus or commitment. Those are only used in the last 5%, because if you use closed-ended questions too early, it becomes a very staccato interview where there's no rhythm or flow or unfolding of the interview. Rely on asking open-ended questions. Experiment with this with your more casual relationships, your family relationships. Catch yourself when you're tempted to ask multiple questions or a question that starts with the word why or do, how different it feels and it is received by asking a how or what question. Only use closed-ended questions at the end of the interview to gain agreement or consensus or commitment. Now, the next 3 are ways of feeding back. Remember, early on in this course, we talked about the communication loop. Person A communicates something to person B. And if person B does not somehow feed that back, communication is incomplete. Now, the feeding back could be nonverbal, or vocal, or visual, or using some words. There are 3 ways of feeding back by words that you understand the person. Once a person receives that feedback that she is being understood, the conversation keeps on unfolding in a more trusting way. The first and simplest one of these is what's called paraphrasing. Paraphrasing, as that word implies, you're phrasing what the person said almost verbatim, or maybe using some other words. That makes the person feel that you understood, that you were listening, indeed, that you care. It's sunny again out today. Yeah, it is sunny and bright today. Use the same words or similar words. And they know then that they've been understood. Paraphrasing seems a little gimmicky, and it works wonders. And that'll teach you to maybe come up with some other words to expand your vocabulary. I am just pissed off. You sound really frustrated. You bet I am. Is that you come up with different words so the person feels understood. So it doesn't seem to be gimmicky or gamey after a while. You become a good listener and a good paraphraser. The next step beyond paraphrasing is what's called reflecting. It is not only feeding back the message, but also feeding back the intent or what is implied or the feelings or what's in between the lines. I am just pissed off about this. Wow, you sound really frustrated. Yeah, you bet I am. It almost sounds like you feel like you're not powerful enough, or you are indeed powerless. That's exactly right. That is part of the art of interviewing, that if you can start learning how to reflect, good counselors and therapists have really honed this to a skill of reflecting back feelings or implications or what's in between the lines. It will take you longer to start reflecting well. And as you do, the interview starts going to the heart of it much more quickly, with both parties feeling more at ease with each other and trusting. Reflecting back, not only the content, but the intent as well as feelings associated with it or implications or what's in between the lines. That means you really have to listen. You really have to be in the moment with that person. That takes a lot of energy to do. Our third way of feeding back is summarizing, and using summaries in two ways. If you play back this session, you see I've been summarizing in the midst of it to summarize what we've done so far. What I will do at the end of this session is also summarize what we've covered all the way. So summarizing is an effective way of bridging the gaps, of ending one area and using it as a bridge to the next area when it's used internally. Summarizing at the end of the interview, at the end of the session, wraps things up. Remember, we talked about whole, parts, whole learning. Well, that last whole is used by summarizing. So these 5 skills, interviewing skills: open-ended questions, proper use of closed-ended questions, the 3 ways of feeding back: paraphrasing, reflecting, taking it to the next level, and summarizing, both within the conversation and at the end of the conversation, are the 5 skills that will enhance your interviewing in formal situations. And you will find out that as you feel comfortable with these, it enhances your communication skills overall. You become an active participant in this. Again, experiment with implementing these. Even though you may understand these better now, changing your methodology, your behaviors to use these new skills takes time. The easiest, safest way to do is with your kids, your spouse, your friends, your dogs, and start out working with for a week or 10 days using how and what questions, open-ended questions, maybe including paraphrasing. Those 2 of the 5 are the easiest ones to understand and implement. And then learn how to ask good closed-ended questions at the end of the interview. Does this make sense? Closed-ended question. And how to use that to gain agreement or consensus or commitment. And then start, after you feel comfortable paraphrasing the content, see if you can go the next step of reflecting emotions or intents with that. And then feel more comfortable doing the 2 forms of summarizing at the end, within the conversation to serve as a bridge, and at the end of the conversation. As you master these 5 interviewing skills, you will become much more effective, much more efficient, and using these interviews as ways to enhance the relationships. Do not believe me. Find out for yourselves, employing the 5 types of interviewing skills: open-ended questions, closed-ended questions, paraphrasing, reflecting, and summarizing. Thank you for your attention.